All right. A Republican senator aligned with Donald Trump has introduced a new bill aiming to criminalize pornography, warning against what he sees as its harmful impact on society. Senator Mike Lee of Utah, along with Illinois Representative Mary Miller, unveiled draft legislation they are calling the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act, which seeks to stop the production and dissemination of pornographic material and to empower prosecutors to act against it by redefining the notion of obscenity for the internet era. According to the wording of the bill, which its authors say is consistent with the Communications Act of 1934, a piece of content is obscene if taken as a whole. It appears to the prurient interest of nudity, sex, or excretion if it depicts, describes, or represents actual or simulated sex acts with the objective intent to arouse, titillate, or gratify the sexual desires of a person, and if taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Publicizing IODA, Senator Lee warned obscenity isn't protected by the First Amendment, but a hazy and unenforceable legal definitions have allowed extreme pornography to saturate American society and reach countless children. Our bill updates the legal definition of obscenity for the internet age so this content can be taken down and its peddlers prosecuted. Representative Miller said their legislation equips law enforcement with the tools they need to target and remove obscene material from the internet, which is alarmingly destructive and far outside the bounds of protected free speech under the Constitution. The Congresswoman added that she and Lee see it as their mission to safeguard American families and ensure this dangerous material is kept out of our homes and off our screens. Many prominent conservatives, often seen calling out cancel culture on TV and social media, typically make an exception when it comes to pornography and advocate for censorship, most recently framing the debate around the potential harmful psychological effect it has on vulnerable young people. All right, so Cole, had you heard about this? And we'll go to you first. Porn, you for it or against it? Go.
I will agree that there is definitely an issue when it comes to how easy it is for young people to access pornography. And there's definitely an issue with the way that has then led to things like the alt-right pipeline and incels. They're going to use this to go after everybody for literally any reason. This is the type of bill that gives you enough of a loophole to ban every book involving queer people existing from being anywhere in the world. This is the type of thing that fascists like to pass, where it's vaguely looking at something that does have general issues and then using that to do whatever they end up deciding they want to do later down the line.
All right, yeah. So I see John is pulling something up there, and I will second everything that Cole just said. I do think it is entirely too easy to run across porn on accident. Like kids. I don't think that any 9-year-old with access to the internet should be able to see all the porn he wants, which is essentially how it is now. I once again, harkening back to the old days, when I was a preteen, I had to work to find my porn. Okay, I had to find blank tapes laying around, or maybe under a mattress or something like that. You were excited. You're like, oh man, this is like a once in a month type of thing. But now kids have it, and it spoils them rotten. But not joking, it does fuck you up. I don't think that, watching hours and hours of pornography by the time you hit puberty is a good idea. So, but obviously this goes way further than we would want. But what you got for us, John?
So first, I want to say we're going to talk about this specific bill first, and then I want to address the broader conversation about porn, because I feel like we might have some disagreement here. But I also find it to be one of the more interesting moral debates out there, because everyone seems to be either right about it for the wrong reasons or right for the wrong or wrong for the right reasons. But either way, the specifics of the bill, why this one in particular is quite scary. It's not just because they want to ban porn, right? Like, at the end of the day, if they ban porn, as much as I would be against that, and certainly it would impact my life, I could probably live without porn, I'll be fine, like we'll all live. We might even be happier, healthier people, I could be convinced by that argument. Still think there's dangers of government bans on it, but whatever.
Yeah, of course.
But this bill is a little bit different because what it does, it's not just about porn. And honestly, the headlines about it being a porn ban are misleading at best because it goes a hell of a lot farther. What it does is it characterizes obscenity differently than it used to be. According to previous standards, it used to be relative to the community, right? So obviously, something happening in San Francisco and something happening in Amish, PA, are going to have different cultural standards of obscenity, right? And I think that makes sense to everyone. Whereas, or even looking at just like state laws, like in New York City, women can walk around topless. That'll get you arrested in some place else. It's obscene one place, not obscene in another. What this law essentially does is it puts the onus for defining obscenity not relative to a community, but as just a standard thing that the federal government gets to define. And the problem with allowing the federal government to define obscenity in this way, especially if you're going to have criminal liability for obscene content, is who is defining the obscenity. And in this case, it's Donald Trump and the architects of Project 2025. And let's take a look at what they said about pornography and obscenity in Project 2025. And by the way, Russell Vought, who we talk about very often, is the head of the Office of Management and Budget and is pretty much Trump's right-hand man. I think that at this point, it's become pretty clear he's the number 2 guy in charge after Elon had his time in the sun. But anyway, in Project 2025, it says pornography is manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. And telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. This is insanity. If we are going to define pornography by the definitions of Project 2025, what this bill essentially does, if this is the definition that the federal government takes, is gives them a broad sweeping brush to outlaw any speech about sexuality, about transgenderism, and of course they're not going to do it for, a male and a female kissing on screen in a children's show, but a transgender character might be labeled as pornographic in and of itself. And if they go far enough with this sort of ideology, transgender people could be labeled as pornographic and outlawed by the state. And again, that's not necessarily where this bill directly goes, but knowing who is behind it and the intent that they laid out in front of us all, that is why, beyond just banning porn, this bill in particular is so scary.
I agree 100%, John. It is unfortunate that this is so easily hijacked toward people with these, pernicious ideas and this, evil intent like this, because that was later in the article too, that exact quote that you talked about, where the creators of Project 2025 said, yeah, we're going to go after porn, and they could list any number of legitimate concerns they have. It says, no, it's for the trans folks. Like, that is definitely, I remember seeing this interview with Ben Shapiro. It wasn't even an interview, it was just on his show. And someone asked him, it was one of the, segments where people could comment and ask him questions. And they asked him, hey, do you think it should be illegal for men to wear dresses? And he says, yes, I think that it should be. I think that men, wearing dresses is a destabilizing element on society, and that, I shouldn't have to explain to my kids why this man is wearing a dress. Now, women wearing pants is different because they make boy pants and they make girl pants. So the girls wear girl pants and the boys wear boy pants. So that's not the same thing. Just, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like this goes against whatever framework I put together, whether it's harmful or not. It's icky, it's weird, I don't like it, and we will use the iron fist of the government to take care of this. And yeah, it's The slippery slope argument is the most lazy intellectual argument. I understand that, but this isn't a slippery slope. This is what they've said. Like, we're actually taking them at their word. Every time Donald Trump says Project 25, I've never heard of Project 25. I'm not going to implement it. I've never read it. Don't know what it is, but suspiciously, he's implementing it every single step of the way. What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is the point, is to get rid of queer people from existing. And one aspect of that I think is important for us to bring up. Well, two aspects. First is the Nazis did it too.
Mhm.
The famous imagery of book burnings, the book burning in The Last Crusade, the one that it was inspired by, was a book burning of books from an institute on sexuality and sexual health. Specifically, some of the first
the Nazis did.
Yes. And some of the first writings on the idea of being trans and sexuality, sexual activity, and sex all being different things and different ideas, those were some of the first things that were targeted by Nazis because they are a very easy target. And then the second thing I want to note, and this is going to be a shameless plug for a book I haven't even finished writing yet, but the second chapter of my work in progress, Confessions of a Former Crypto-Fascist, is no one taught you how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So the existence of trans people makes right-wingers, conservatives, and fascists uncomfortable for a number of reasons. Some of those reasons are sexual attraction. Some of those reasons are simply not being comfortable with things being different than the way that they've brought up. And so in order for us to solve the problem of Mike Lee existing the way he is going to need to be teaching Mike Lee to get comfortable being uncomfortable in general. And I think that's true when we work in conversation across the aisle, is that the conversation needs to be, yeah, other people who are different than you exist, and that is not a problem.
Can I call a timeout real quick here? Cole, did you say this is a plug for a book you're writing?
Yes.
And it's titled Confessions from a Former Crypto-Fascist?
Yes.
You wanna go into some
I had the
detail?
same exact line of
You
questioning
wanna
here, TJ.
you wanna just not toss that out there? Hold on.
Right. So, okay, yeah. So, other quick moment. There are longer explanations on my TikTok under a segment just about this book. But so I grew up in a segregated town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was raised in the early 2000s to the mid 2000s in a way that speed ran me through the alt-right pipeline. So then a crypto-fascist in general parlance is a person who is a fascist but identifies as something else. As a young teen to early 20s, I was a person who believed in fascism but didn't know that's what my beliefs were. And then my process for the last 10 or so years has been deconstructing this right-wing upbringing, and I've now moved literally further left than most people can fathom. And so the idea for writing this book is to lay out the ideas in American fascism and in American right-wing upbringings that people don't often think about when they're being indoctrinated into them, and to help pull people out of the alt-right pipeline by being able to give them a way to see that it can be done and ways to question some of the presuppositions that they go about in the world without even thinking about.
Very important follow-up question here. And this question isn't so much for me or even the audience. It is for one man, John Cooper. And the question I have for you, Cole, is while you were a fascist and supporting all of this, horrible, detrimental ideology and shit, did you actually believe the Bible and everything while you were preaching this? Or into your mind?
Yeah. In my mind, I hadn't yet noticed the cognitive dissonance because America has almost 5 centuries of experience flipping the ideology of whiteness into the way that the Bible is presented. So my the ELCA does not teach biblical literalism, does not teach life at conception, but those ideas slipped into my psyche just from being in the community that I was raised in. So I had ideas and values, and the thought was that my values were being enacted through these political ideas. But what I was able to realize when the cognitive dissonance became too much is that no, the way to love your neighbor is not by supporting policies of immigration that don't let your neighbor even be your neighbor or move there. It isn't to support policies that leave people without health care, without mental health support, without education. It isn't to build a world where people are not diverse, where everyone lives in their own homogenous communities. The way to live out the idea of the Bible and to live out just the idea of loving other people, whether you do it in a Christian perspective or a humanist perspective or in a Muslim perspective, is to love them as they tell you love is. It's to support them and honor them and see them as they are and to welcome them into community with you.
All right. I was just
So for anyone in the audience wondering why TJ asked the question for me, TJ, first of all, I love that we've been doing this so long that like we know what questions are fine for the other person.
Yeah,
but
we're an old married couple, basically. Yeah.
a running hot take I have on this show, and I admit it's a hot fucking tamale of a take. But I always say, you know, the evangelicals, the alt-right Christians, they don't actually fucking believe in Jesus or the Bible. There's no way that amount of cognitive dissonance can possibly exist. I think deep down they either do not believe in the fascism or don't believe in Jesus. I refuse to accept that a human brain can hold both of those concepts in their brain at the same time without noticing. And I understand they can, but I just refuse to believe it in the same way that, you know, people refuse to admit that God isn't real. Anyway, the other question I have, so I want to loop back to the porn thing because I find porn to be a very interesting topic to talk about because you said that, you know, you don't think that 9-year-olds should have access to all of the porn on the internet.
Yeah.
And my question to that is why?
Because
go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to ask more, but go ahead.
No, I'd say because of the addictive qualities of pornography. I feel the same way about porn as I feel about gambling, in that if you would have asked me 10 years ago what my thoughts were on it, I would have said any restrictions and laws against this is absurd. Like, are we a free society or not? Why can't I start a casino to rip people off who know they're going in to get ripped off? That seems strange to me. But I mean, as I've seen what gambling addiction is doing to people and how much it's hurting society, and seeing what porn has done, like I don't know the numbers on this, but the amount of like young boys addicted to pornography is not good, and the erectile dysfunction that happens from it, the psychological depression that happens from it, the hatred towards women that we've seen skyrocket. I don't think it's a coincidence that it happens with the proliferation of pornography. Now, I don't think porn should be illegal. I would never say that. But I just don't think it should be as easy to get on it when you're still developing and to form an addiction that you're going to have a hard time getting off, a hard time getting rid of, you know, once you start. I just remember I saw some thing about there's actually a name for it, like called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Like, it's an actual thing where like people, you know, cannot perform sexually because of it. Now, of course, that doesn't mean everyone's going to be addicted, but I don't think that it should be that easy for kids. That's how I see it.
So that I'm pretty much in concurrence with. That I don't think, at least I have not seen any evidence that porn in and of itself is harmful to the viewer, no matter what age they are. I don't think that just watching people have sex in and of itself is harmful to a child. And when I say a child, we're talking the kids that go and search porn here. I'm not talking about a 3-year-old or whatever. But like the problem that I see with the way that these debates are often framed is it's like we need to protect the kids, banning porn to protect the kids, and I'm like, that doesn't make much sense to me, because I agree with what TJ said. It can be harmful because it's addictive. It can be harmful because it doesn't teach. It teaches all the wrong shit about sex. It teaches very, very, very inaccurate depictions of what sex is what it should be, and that fucks everything. Yeah. But those to me aren't problems with porn. It's problems with sexual education, because I think the gambling thing is absolutely perfect. I was raised in a family that taught me to gamble from a very early age. We have a story in my family about how my uncle was taking care of me. He took me to the bar that he always hangs out with. He was like, "Oh shit, I need to go pick something up from the house for my grandmother." And so he left me with his buddies. He comes back 15 minutes later, and I'm filling out gambling slips for that upcoming Sunday with the bookie that was at the bar. And he was like, "What the hell's going on?" But like that was it was part of my culture growing up, and I learned how to gamble responsibly from a very young age. I never had any problems with gambling addiction at all, because I was taught the proper way to do it as a fun exercise that is social or whatever, and to always do it responsibly. Learn to play poker from a very young age, learn to do all of that from a very young age. I wish I had that for porn. I wish I had homemade porn to show the kids. I'm not saying I wanted my uncle to leave me at a bar with all the dudes watching porn. No, but I wish I had better sexual education. I wish I had comfort in talking to adults in my life. I wish I didn't feel the need to hide the fact that I was watching porn, because that's where all of this bad shit happens. That's where the addiction happens. That's where the shame happens. That's where the thought that this is real happens. I wish someone would have sat me down and been like, "Yeah, no, you can watch the porn. There's no shame in it, but it's not what sex is. You shouldn't learn that this is what sex is, because it isn't." No one ever did that, and that's why it was damaging to me. And I feel like the way that this is often framed is we need to protect the person watching the porn, when if you're going to make an argument for banning porn, it damn well should be we need to protect the actresses acting in the porn who are being exploited constantly. I feel very similar to porn how I do about veganism, where I'm like, God damn, that
makes some good points. Make some good points. They make some good points. Yeah,
it makes some damn good points. Do I still partake? Yes. Do I often feel bad about it? Yes, I do.
That's what matters.
That's why I like OnlyFans. Like, say what you will. That is not exploit, or at least
it's less exploitative. It's less exploitative.
It's far less exploitative, and that is a far better way to consume porn, in my opinion. But it gets for whatever reason, bad rap. From our society to partake in that sort of thing. I also don't. But like, it shouldn't. Like, that's far better. What do you think, Cole? I just talked for a long time, but I feel like this point needed to be properly explained.
Yeah, so absolutely, the porn industry, like all other industries, should be socialized and should be owned and ran by the workers. And then I want to add on to the gambling aspect of it, where our understanding of the health that comes with screen time is very far behind the technology. This is something that my opinion has shifted on greatly in the last year and a half, as I've started to educate children who were given iPads when they were 3, 4, who fundamentally don't have the hardware or the software to be able to process being removed from that reinforcer. So we threw out 9 years old as just a number to throw out there, but the way that we allow children to access the crack of screen time and just the literally computers that are smarter than they are when we're giving them to them is not healthy for anybody involved. I understand how it came about. I understand why it happens. I certainly understand I just needed 5 minutes of peace so they can watch Coco Melon. But at the end of the day, we're seeing even just 10 years of access to iPads and access to high-speed internet and everything that is on the internet, the damage it does to our society. One of the things that, tying back in fascism, one of the reasons why fascism spreads so quickly is that it is easy to spread on new media before
Yep.
people have begun
Yep.
to understand how to be healthy with it. Hitler was a great user of the radio. There's several different studies about how radio and television influenced the Rwanda genocide. And so we keep coming up with this new technology and then waiting 20, 30, 100 years to figure out the best ethical use for it.
Yeah. Something I say on the show, I feel like every week is one of my half joking ideas is that we need to treat smartphones like cigarettes. Sorry, you don't get one. Sorry, you don't get it. Sorry, you got to wait till you're able to handle this before you can do that or be on social media. John, Hugh Jass made a comment here that like 20 minutes ago I didn't bring up. But it said, just eat some cornflakes, John. You'll probably be all right. For those of you wondering what Hugh Jass is referencing there, Kellogg, like the actual guy who made the company Cornflake, or made the company that made cornflakes, he created cornflakes as an anti-masturbation food. He was trying to stop young boys from beating off, and he figured, if they eat cornflakes, kind of crazy. But yeah, thank you for that, Hugh Jass. That was pretty good. Colby made a good comment here saying, online porn is so different than physical media porn. Playboys don't have pop-up ads designed to keep you in the magazine longer. I thought that was pretty funny. That was a good...
My quick take on that, I think I've said this on the show before, but one of the most damning pieces of evidence for just the human race in general is the existence of porn ads, because anyone who's ever watched porn has seen a porn ad that is just the most ridiculous shit you've ever seen. You know, hot, sexy women are waiting for you. Just click here, and they'll text you, "Hey, make your dick the size of the Empire State Building." Like, it's just the most obviously ridiculous things. And again, like, we're like, I feel like I don't know. Everyone's like digital safety lessons when they're growing up, but when I was growing up, don't click random ads and pop-ups was like right there at top of number one next to stranger danger, right? And it's like people knowing that it could like just fuck up their entire life to click one of these ads and download the wrong software, knowing that this can't possibly be real, right? They click the fucking ads because I know they do, because Pornhub generates millions of dollars on pay-per-click ad revenue. And here's what makes it worse, TJ. Here's what makes it even worse. You might think, oh, wow, millions and millions of clicks on porn ads. People are clicking these things millions of times. They must be really dumb. You know what's worse? You know
What?
In order to justify spending the money on the porn ads, the destination has to be making money, TJ. The people aren't just clicking the ad, they're buying the fucking product.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're the dumbest species in the world.
I've often wondered this about that. Well, not that I watch a lot of pornography, but whenever I see it, I was like, like John mentioned, hot singles in your area. I click here for adult friend finder and hook up with a chick in your town. And I remember this is like 12 years ago, and I was in the Army, and I was talking to my platoon sergeant, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I got a date tonight." I was, "Oh yeah, where'd you guys meet?" He goes, "I met her on adultfriendfinder.com." I said, "What?" First, I was shocked I met anyone who clicked an adult friend finder ad. Second, that he actually found someone to go out with. That and was willing to admit it out loud. All three of those things didn't seem likely at all, but I don't know. That was so stay here for more porn hot takes next week on The Left Wing, folks. We'll get you all set up.